This is our weekly cybersecurity briefing. We're going to go over our agenda for today. And we typically cover introduction, current cybersecurity landscape, recent cyber attacks and breaches, cybersecurity best practices. If we have an FTC safeguard updates, we will tell you about that, and we'll have our closing remarks. So I want to say thank you for being here. Hang on, I do see that my slides are actually not changing, so. All right, here's our agenda. Introduction, current cybersecurity landscape, recent cyber attacks and breaches, cybersecurity best practices, FTC safeguards. If we have an update for you, I don't have an update today on the FTC safeguards, but if I did, I would bring it to you at this time. Closing statements. And so I want to say thank you for being here today. Cyber attacks obviously are going way up. It's a growing problem. And here at Vandernet, we decided to do a cybersecurity briefing every Thursday, 1:30 Central Standard Time, to get you the information you need and get you back to work. That's why it's only going to be 15, 20 minutes to supply you necessary information we feel is vital for you to know. And you might say, who am I? Who shows up to these webinars? This could be a business owner, it could be a C-suite, or you could just be an employee that shows up to work and wants to know more about cybersecurity and how to better protect your organization, or maybe you've been tasked to do that. So if you have any questions throughout this whole presentation or at the end, you can email hello@rethinksecure.com and you say, why Rethink Secure? And here at Vandernet, we're constantly thinking, what does it mean to be secured? Because it's an evolving thing. Threats are evolving. And so we have to stay on top of what it really means to rethink secured in today's today's nature, like what's going on. So who are we? I'm Garrett. I'm the CEO here at Vandernet. We started in 2010, and COVID, things changed. We all know things changed. You know things changed. In our business, things changed. Where everybody was behind a corporate firewall, all of a sudden, then they were going home and working remotely. And what happened was, now we're all this intellectual property, this personal data was behind a corporate firewall. Now it's literally sitting at home behind home internet connections. So hackers quickly picked up on this and they exploited it more than ever because there was not the advanced protections we needed. And when nothing is planned, like COVID wasn't planned, then you get what you get. And hackers took advantage of that time. And so the cybersecurity landscape has changed. We at Vandernet have had to change. We have to become cybersecurity first and focus on protecting our customers, the people, the data, and the technology inside their organizations. So we focus on the financial services industry, both being accounting firms and wealth management firms. They're the number 2 largest industry that gets hacked. Financial services is, as you can tell, they have access to a lot of personal identifiable information and a lot of money. And so moving on, current cybersecurity landscape, latest trends, threats, and developments in cybersecurity with a focus on how it impacts you. And today we are going to go over the Crowdstrike's like they release an annual report, like Verizon releases a cybersecurity annual report. So my apologies. Cybersecurity releases an annual report, Verizon releases an annual report, CrowdStrike releases an annual report, and the FBI also released an annual report. So we're going to hop over to the annual report and review just a couple of things in it. One thing that I wanted to share today is the threat landscape, and we're just going to talk briefly about these specific things, and then we'll move into the articles that I have to share with you today and your cybersecurity best practice tip before you leave. So if you look at your screen, 34 of new adversaries tracked by CrowdStrike. And you say, who's CrowdStrike? Why is it relevant? They're a global cybersecurity platform company. So they do a lot of different things in regard to cybersecurity. One of the things that they can do is they have a lot of traffic that comes in and out of their network. So they're able to see a lot of things that traditional people can't see in regard to threat intel and learning how are hackers getting through. And so they bring us this report, and you'll see that they have 34 new adversaries tracked by CrowdStrike, raising to a total of 232 specific adversaries. And when we say adversaries in this case, they're actually talking about countries, like hacking groups in countries targeting businesses. And one slide later in this, you would see that the United States is the recipient of over, I think it's 61% of all of the global cyber attacks. So people are targeting US business, US commerce. Cloud conscious case increased by 110 year over year. That's year over year. That's not like 100%. It's like year over year, it's growing 101%. And why does it mean to be cloud conscious? What it means is the cyber criminals are thinking it's harder to get through some of the firewalls than if they just attack some of your cloud software providers. So we encourage our customers to go through and we work with them, and they make a list of all of their software as a service applications that they have in the cloud. And then we start to work with them on locking down the security accesses to those cloud service applications. Do they have MFA? If your cloud service application provider does not provide MFA, you need to, depending upon what type of information you're housing in that cloud, you might need to be looking for a new provider if they're only allowing you to do username and passwords to log into that sensitive information. So the follow-up to that would be, okay, you have username and password to log in right now. You need to enable MFA on that cloud account. So if they don't have it, you should put in a support ticket. You should ask, hey, is this an available feature? Because we need it enabled. It's a non-negotiable when it comes to doing business in the cloud these days. Why hackers are focusing on attacking the cloud. 75% of the environments, cloud environment intrusions increased. So that means not only are they conscious and aware of it, but 75%, they're seeing a 75% increase in cyber criminals getting into the cloud. And so the other thing is 76% year over year increases in victims named on eCrime dedicated leak sites, which just means it's just a growing problem. Like I said, at the slide number 2 is like cyber attacks are just growing and they're going up. And so we have to be aware of what's going on and better protect our businesses. So moving right along, the next slide is recent cyber attacks and breaches. So today we're going to cover Life360 CEO, tile tracking device data breach. And I know that my wife uses tile, and I know a lot of other friends that use tile, and you're like, how is this relevant to business? Because we are putting more and more information out there online. So it's important that you're constantly thinking, like we talked about rethinking secured. You're constantly thinking, okay, I'm going to purchase this tile device. It's going to allow me to easily find my keys, my wallet, maybe my cell phone, maybe my wife's cell phone. Come on, somebody. But the reality is we have to understand what the ramifications of that are. So go through that software as a service list that you have and start thinking about, if this information were to get out, how sensitive is that to my organization? Or if we have vehicle tracking, and some of us have, Verizon vehicle tracking, so we know where all of our fleet vehicles are, iPads and all of that. How sensitive is that information? Maybe it's not very sensitive to your organization. You say, oh, that's not that big of a deal if that were to get out. But think about if you're an accounting firm or a wealth management firm and the information that you could be putting into your customers' CRM, where you're managing customer information, or maybe even payroll, like your payroll system that you're using, is it secured? And I think it's important that you make sure that it has that MFA enabled on that payroll system. So going to look at this specific article right here, Life360 CEO confirmed the details of the incident after a 404 media publishes hackers' side of the story. So hackers are compromising systems. They're actually reaching out to the media and saying, hey, I got something important that maybe you'd want to know about. How much would you pay me to give you the information that I have that you'd be the first one to report on it? Kind of crazy if you think about it. But essentially, the CEO confirms that specific information was in fact breached, which would be name, addresses, email addresses, and phone numbers, and tile identification numbers. But supposedly no other sensitive information here was released, like card information, passwords, login, or location information. But if you just think about it for a second, if you have the device's identification numbers, that's usually the QR code, right, that you use to pair your tile with your app. And so whereas maybe they didn't directly inherently get the information of where this tile information is, there could be additional ramifications of this, because they could technically use that if for some reason they were able to get it disjoined from an assigned account that's already has the tile set up, or maybe not all the tiles have been set up yet and they're in process. Then there could be some additional tracking information that they could derive from that information. So the next article that I want to bring up today is how to prevent material breaches by executive and board members. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been on a few boards, and if you know anything about that, it seems like a lot of personal email addresses are used in the board sense. A lot of material, maybe the board member doesn't have, and they have a personal email that board packets are sent to, or intellectual property sent to, just for review, or like, hey, we got an organizational problem, maybe strategy, a lot of strategic information sent to executive board members. So I think it's important that there's a lot of sensitive information that is sent to an executive board that needs to be considered when it comes to security and securing the board members and the company's intellectual property. So let's check out this article that I just pulled up, and we'll read further into this. So a couple of things here is how is an executive board compromised? So material breach as defined by the SEC, and any cybersecurity incident that could impact an organization's financial health, operations, significantly enough to affect shareholder decisions. So if you're publicly traded, you could have big implications if your executive board emails or the information that's sent to them, hopefully not sent to their private email addresses. Hopefully the entity is providing, the company is providing them a company email address to receive that information, that communication securely. But if that were to get out, if you're publicly traded, you would fall underneath the breach requirements, and you have to notify the SEC of that information, because that could affect people's investment decisions. So recent guidance on cybersecurity disclosures underscores the importance of a timely and accurately reporting of material cybersecurity instances. Examples from the field, the way that this usually happens can be like spear phishing, which is email, social engineering, which could be email, or it could be like somebody's reaching out to them and engaging with them on like Facebook Messenger, WhatsApp, Instagram, and then all of a sudden there's dialogue, and the next thing you know, their email is compromised. Or third-party risks. Executives often interact with various third parties, including advisors and personal assistants, who may have access to sensitive information. So it might not even be a board member. It could be just simply be an executive inside the company that is using that's not secured, doesn't have all the security measures. We go into organizations, and sometimes we find the organization maybe have a good security posture, but the people at the top somehow are like omitted from the security protections that they need to have in place. And so we have to have a strategic conversation around that. Like, how do we protect these executive members? Because they're the ones, it's like if an attack's going to happen, or people that have access to the most sensitive information in the company is typically an executive level staffer. So how do we overcome those things? How do we protect our board members? How do we protect our company? Is comprehensive training, robust security protocols, continuous monitoring. If you don't got people watching your stuff 24 hours while you're sleeping, or even when you're not sleeping, if you're not a competent cybersecurity professional, then you should absolutely be engaging in a cybersecurity professional to monitor your stuff and better protect your business. And incident response planning. I just had an insurance broker inside my office yesterday, and we're talking about incident response planning. We're talking about what are the necessary steps, Garrett? Like, what do you do when you start incident response planning? The first thing we do here at VanderNet when we start to sit down with a client and start working on incident response planning is we look at their cybersecurity insurance policy. We get their broker engaged in the conversation, so we understand maybe they already have provisions that they would like to see when an incident happens. So if you have cybersecurity insurance, reach out to your broker, have a conversation. Maybe they can help you with incident response planning. If they can't, we're happy to help you with incident response planning. and we're happy to have insurance conversations with you. But it's super important. Whoever's writing the policy, they're the ones that ultimately have the responsibility to like cover the damages or to respond to an incident, like, and how you respond to an incident. So please consult your cybersecurity insurance policy. So that being said, we're going to go back to our slides. And I've ended with this the last several weeks. And it's just a great reminder. Every time you open software on your computer, that software can access everything you can, which is really good for our tidbit, our little insight for you, our big idea for today. And that would be, the big idea today is admin access to your systems, limit your access. So a lot of times what we find in organizations is organizational leadership. Maybe they have too much access to systems than they really need. Privilege model. Unless the person should have access to the systems and resources that their specific job responsibilities require, they should not have access to those systems. So, which is crazy to think, but if you're executive leadership, you're an owner of an organization, if you don't access those systems or resources on a daily basis, maybe you don't have a reason to really have access to those systems and resources on a daily basis. That's why I like the picture on your screen right now. It's showing that there's layers, and that's why I picked this picture out. Is like the more layers you can put between you and the sensitive data and information of your organization, the better protected you're going to be, and you're going to minimize your risk. So that's what I said. Limit your access, limit your risk. So you need to probably do a permissions audit. And one of the things that we would absolutely encourage you to do is create what we call service, like break glass admin accounts, which means create an admin account for that particular software as a service application that is not your specific daily logged in account. And why that's important is you're starting to draw a line. You're starting to build layers between your account, which maybe should have limited access or limited permissions to your specific role inside the organization, but maybe you manage it for the rest of your organization. And then you would have a separate admin account that would be isolated, secured with MFA, that you would not be accessing and logging into every single day. And last but not least, I have to say, thank you for being here. We're going to get you out on time. If you have any questions, you can scan the QR code. We'd love to have a conversation with you. A free 15-minute cybersecurity strategy session to talk to you about maybe some of your security concerns and how maybe we at Vandernet can help you. I also want to remind you that we will, the same time next week, 1:30 Central Standard Time, we'll be back here with additional information. The goal is to provide you relevant information for your business to keep your business secured. And we want to supply that to you and get you back to work. I just want to say thank you once again for being here. It's always great to have new people, returning people to the cyber briefing, and we'll see you again next week.